from PHLV Radio.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
Good evening, everyone. It's another Friday evening here in the US, or actually in my area, in Los Angeles. And to those people watching us in different parts of the world and of the country, magandang gabi po. And those people in the Philippines, I know it's 12 noon there at binabati ko po na magandang pananghalian ngayong Sabado ng hapon or tanghali. Magandang gabi again for everybody watching us. I'm live here in Los Angeles, coming to you, and then of course on behalf of the station PHLV Radio, magandang gabi po. As you know, we are live on Facebook, PHLV Facebook, also on YouTube, and also you could watch us on Amazon Fire TV channel of PHLV Radio. And also we're doing live audio streaming as well on and also podcast edition on iHeart Radio, Spotify, and iTunes. Today, as a lot of you are so excited when we announce our special guest for tonight, a lot of you already been sending me text and email and messenger about questions you would like to ask our special guest. I'm not going to make it longer, but I just need to make sure that I will be able to introduce him properly because it is such a privilege and an honor to have him as our guest for tonight. Consul General Neil Frank Ferrer is our special guest for tonight, and he is the Consul General of the Republic of the Philippines in San Francisco. And the consular jurisdiction are the following. So the Consulate of San Francisco is responsible for Alaska, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Northern California, Northern Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Washington State, as well as Wyoming. And then, of course, as you must have heard, especially people here in the U.S., he started his consular duty or tour of duty here in San Francisco effective January 20th of this year, 2021. And of course, Congen Neil is a career diplomat with extensive experience in foreign service, including consular work, bilateral and multilateral diplomacy. And I was talking to him earlier prior to us going live. He served in different capacity in different consulate, like Philippine Embassy in Beijing, China from 2001 2003, then Philippine Embassy in London from 2003 to 2009, also Philippine Embassy in Ottawa, Canada from 2011 to 2013. And then prior to that, he was the Consul General of Vancouver, Canada from 2013 to 2018. And then prior to his assignment to San Francisco, he was the Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs of the Department of Foreign Affairs in the Philippines from August 2018 to January 2021 prior to his new assignment in San Francisco. One of the things that you need to understand too and to take note is Consul General Neil served as chairman of the Maritime Safety Committee of the International Maritime Organization in London, United Kingdom from 2007 to 2011. And just to let you know, he is the only Filipino diplomat who has been elected as MSC chairman. Okay. Also, he is the recipient of the Distinguished Award for Filipino Diplomats, and that's the Gawad Mabini with the rank of Dakilang Kamagong or Kamanong Grand Cross conferred by the Philippine President at the time in June 29, 2020. He has a bachelor's in political science from the University of the Philippines, and he has completed some work, some master's in science and economics at De La Salle University and he finished his Masters of Arts in International Boundaries with distinction at the University of Durham in the United Kingdom. He's happily married with 4 kids. Again, magandang gabi po and good evening. This is such an honor, Conjan Neil Ferrer, to be joining us today because people are just... See, I have so many questions already as it is and it's ongoing plus the texts. So magandang gabi po and again, maraming salamat po sa pagpaunlak sa amin to join us as our special guest today so we could clear some of the miscommunication, misinformation, and to correct some of the facts that needs to be said, especially with the Fil-Am community, Conjanil.
Maraming salamat, Josh, at magandang gabi sa iyo at magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan dito sa Estados Unidos. Good evening po to everyone and good afternoon to our listeners from the Philippines, and good day to the rest of the world who are following your live broadcast, your podcast. So it's an honor and privilege for me to be invited as a guest in your program tonight. So again, and thank you so much for your very generous and kind introduction. Thank you, Josh. Naalala ko tuloy yung gano'n na ako katagal sa service, so it brought back memories, yeah. But yeah,
well,
thank you.
Everybody's saying you're so young. So I said, well, his experience, hindi naman kukuha sa age yan eh. Sabi ko, some people are just too successful in their endeavor and regardless of their age. And you said earlier you're old. I said, well, people are saying you're too young. You're young looking.
Well, I joined the department relatively young. I was 21 when I first entered the Foreign Service. I started as a research officer. That was after university. And then I took the exam, the Foreign Service Officer's exam, and I joined the Department of Foreign Affairs. I was 26 years old.
So all this time, it's always been with the public service.
That's right.
From
after university, it's been working in the government. I work outside government also. Before I joined the service, I was a part-time instructor at the university, at De La Salle University. So sideline ko yun.
Yeah,
okay. In Manila, yes.
In Manila. Okay, Conja, let's start now first with the any update po what's happening in the Philippines right now, because I know social media is really nice and it's good, but sometimes we get information from different areas, and then like what I told Consul Vanessa, a lot of them will say they got it from a friend of a neighbor's friend. Alam mo yung pasa-pasa lang, and it becomes like hard fact. So can you give us at least a brief update on what's happening in the Philippines right now?
Of course, like you and others, we rely, of course, on the news, So I would recommend people, of course, to check the news, from verified sources, before, of course, making any decisions. But basically, ang prominent news recently is the declaration regarding the status of quarantine in the NCR and in Metro Manila and other surrounding areas. So obviously, we still have the yung mga GCQ and ECQ in place, in different areas. So I would recommend to check the relevant news on that. Napakarami po yun, So regarding yung decision based on the recommendation by the IATF to place, for example, the National Capital Region or NCR under the GCQ or General Community Quarantine, subject to heightened restrictions from July 30 to August 5. But beginning August 6, the classification of the NCR shall be escalated to the ECQ or the Enhanced Community Quarantine. And that is until August 20, 2021. So, and there are different, of course, regime in place in other areas. So, mas maganda po i-verify nila yon and i-check with the local authorities just to be sure. And as we very well know, depending on the restrictions in place, may iba-iba pong activities that are allowed to be undertaken by our people. And basically, the idea here really is to protect everyone, to keep safe because nandyan pa rin po ang pandemya at kumakalat po. And that is why our authorities are really trying their best to control the spread of the virus. So I encourage everyone to abide by the restrictions, the requirements by our authorities, both at the local government and at the national level. But I think ang pinaka-relevant that I could probably share with you are the efforts of the government to vaccinate our people. And so far, maganda po ang mga developments as far as the vaccination is concerned. As of Tuesday, as of July 27, 2021, more than 18 million doses of vaccine have been administered. And that is about a 16% increase from the previous week, from July 21. And in fact, in the past 7 days, the country, the Philippines, we have administered over 2.6 or almost 2.6 million doses, just in the last 7 days. And the Philippines has recorded the highest daily jabs administered on 27 of July with a total of 659,000 doses administered on that day. And globally po, the total doses administered by the Philippines, we rank number 25 out of 200 countries. We are number 10 in Asia out of 47 countries, and we are second in the ASEAN region after Indonesia. So overall po in the Philippines, we have vaccinated 10.4% of our population, at least one dose. And since the rollout of the vaccine in March. And as I said, we are one of the fastest in terms of the administration of the vaccine globally, because now of the good rollout of the vaccine across the country. So I encourage again our people to avail of the vaccine. Tuloy-tuloy po yan all across the country because we have now sufficient supply and the government has already contracted different vaccines and schedule na po yung arrival ng vaccine coming from different countries, including from the United States. Kasama po dyan yung Pfizer, Moderna, and of course, Johnson & Johnson.
That's good to know, Conjen, kasi one of the things that I was asked to ask you is because some of the of course, we hear things and we read things. Lagi sinasabi nila na kulelat ang Philippines when it comes to vaccine, yung pagpapatupad ng inoculation or vaccination. And it's good to hear from you that we're really not the lost because they said we're worse than Bangladesh. And I keep telling them, you know what? You don't listen to everything that you hear until you get it from the right source, like the Consulate of the Philippines, whether it's San Francisco, LA, Chicago. I mean, go to the facts because at the end of the day, there's so many factors and segments that you don't know what their intentions of saying that. But at the end of the day, it's stop the spread because until it's official, it's not official. So it's great to hear that maganda po yung takbo ngayon. Like I think you said 16% of the population is already vaccinated, at least with those with job number one.
Right now po 10.4% of the population. So yeah. So
yeah, that's good. At least,
and it's and as I mentioned, we are one of the fastest globally in terms of the daily rate. Yung 7-day average natin, number 15 po tayo globally and actually number 9 tayo in Asia.
Oh, so, imagine on number 15 and number 9 in Asia. And some of them are already watching right now and they're on my queue. So we're not kulelat. We're not worse as Bangladesh. So stop the fake news, please. It's important that we give the right information so it's good vibes. So we're doing, the Philippine government is doing their best to do what they can to alleviate all this. And this is not only exclusive for the Philippines, but we all know that the pandemic is global in nature. So it would help also to get the right information. Ngayon, Conjen, they're asking also, this is so close to everybody's heart, yung travel daw po. Can people travel now to the Philippines, especially now with the new thing? Because this is what we know po. And this is, I'm reading through some of the questions that I told Consul Vanessa and I briefly mentioned to you because most of the questions that was sent to me were basically about travel, and one of them would be, you can only travel if you are a dual citizenship or you have a Filipino visa. Any foreigner, they're not allowed in the country. Totoo ba po yun, or this is another fake news?
Ano po yan eh. We have to qualify that. And let me try my best to clarify that. Number one po, meron pa rin pong travel restrictions in place. But hindi po yun absolute because there are exemptions. And in fact, very recently, following a resolution by the IATF, the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, beginning next week po, beginning effective August 1, meron po tayong tinatawag na non-restricted foreigners, and kasama po dito yung American passport holders. They are allowed to apply for the 9A visa without the need for the entry exemption document if they fall under the following categories. Number one po, foreign spouses of Filipino nationals.
Okay.
Number two, foreign minor children and foreign children with special needs, regardless of age, of Filipino nationals. And foreign parents of minor Filipino children and foreign parents of Filipino children with special needs, regardless of age. So yun po, yung categories na yon ng foreigners, they are allowed to apply for a visa, and hindi na po kailangan yung before the tedious process of getting the entry exemption document from Manila, from our authorities in the Home Office. And aside from that, the balikbayan privilege has been in effect, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, since December last year. So ibig sabihin po nito, yung former Filipino nationals and Filipino citizens, including their spouses or children traveling with them, they can also travel to the Philippines without the need for a visa. Basta kasama po yung Filipino traveling to the Philippines. And of course, you mentioned po yung dual citizens. Again, they can also travel to the Philippines even if they don't have their Philippine passport. Kailangan lang po yung proof ng dual citizen sila, kagaya po ng kanilang dual citizenship identification certificate. So, yun po. So, meron pong mga exemptions from the travel restrictions to the country.
That's good to know, Conjen, because one of the questions that I would be asking you, kasi another thing that was floating around is that if you're a dual citizenship, you have to have a Philippine passport to travel. So you just answered that you don't really need a Philippine passport as long as you have the dual citizenship certification. Am I correct, or did I hear it correct, sir?
Yes, that is correct. Opo. Tatlo po yung documents na yon. We have the oath of allegiance, we have the identification certificate, and the order of approval. Kahit ang dala-dala lang nila yung identification certificate, yun po yung pinaka-importante, that will be honored by our authorities when they enter the country. Yun po ang proof that they are dual citizen.
And that's great to hear too, that kasi before, prior to the what you just updated us with, if you're a foreign, regardless whether you're your husband or wife, and you have a foreign passport, you're not allowed to visit. And now you said there's some qualifiers for that. And these qualifiers, they could go back, aside from this radio station, they could go back to any website of the Philippine Consulate, right?
At tama po yan. And we have actually released an advisory very recently sa aming Facebook page and also sa aming website regarding this new procedure for obtaining a 9A visa under those categories of foreign nationals. At nandun din po yan sa advisory po ng ating Bureau of Immigration. So I advise those who intend to travel to the Philippines to please check, of course, the Bureau of Immigration website, including yung website po ng ating mga foreign service posts for updated information regarding the travel and entry requirements to the Philippines. And
then, Conjen, a follow-up lang, kaano daw po katagal ang processing for that particular visa?
Sa amin po yung visa, usually this is done by mail. So if we receive it today, we process it on the same day.
Okay.
So provided kompleto po yung mga information and the requirements, so they can, once we receive it today, we process it on the same day so they can get it within 3 to 5 working days. Depending po do sa turnaround ng mail na ginamit po nila. If it's a special mail, they can get it quicker.
Okay, and then we have a general question as well, Conjen. They're asking if you are a resident, say, of California and you are traveling, say, to Hawaii, is it okay to apply and get consular services in that? For example, if they're gonna be, ito yung example niya, I'll be in Hawaii for like 2 weeks. Is it possible for me to get my appointment there for dual citizenship in Hawaii as opposed to being in California?
Yes, that is possible. And in fact, not just dual citizenship, but even passport application, civil registry, and others. So because we work with all the foreign service, kahit saan po kayo mag-apply, basta po may embassy tayo doon, may konsulado po tayo doon, they are ready to receive and process your dual citizenship and your passport application.
Kasi po sabi nung isa nag-text, kasi po sa Hawaii wala po silang pila.
Yeah, siguro mas kokonti yung kanilang mga applicants kaya mas less.
That's what I kind of figured that out. So you heard it from Conjen Neil, you are allowed to apply anywhere as long as there's consulate and you happen to have enough time to do that. And then you just have to, yung pangbang ngayon, yung pag-application pa rin po, the same pa rin po. You go online and do you go online for your appointment first, or has that changed recently? Kasi in the previous past po, you just go walk in, and I know there's some consulate na hindi na po pwede yung walk in. In the case po of San Francisco, do you still allow walk in into your embassy?
Number one po, meron po kaming appointment system. So, and we encourage everyone to use the appointment system for passport, dual citizenship, and notarials. And the reason for that is because we are still in a pandemic. So, we are, of course, trying to control in terms of the number of people coming into our offices. Mm-hmm. But having said that, kami po sa San Francisco, we are flexible. We allow and we accommodate walk-ins, especially if you are outside California, but within our consular jurisdiction. Nabanggit nyo kanina, Josh, di ba, yung 10 states within our jurisdiction.
Yes.
So,
yes.
If you will be coming outside of California, say you'll be coming from Alaska, Idaho, Washington, Montana, you go to the consulate in San Francisco, we will accommodate you and process your application. Provided,
even
of
without
course,
appointment.
Even without appointment. Okay. That's right. So, ganun po kami ka-flexible. We accommodate those that are coming out of state. And of course, ang advice namin, dapat kompleto po yung mga requirements nyo so that we can do it on the same day. And yung process namin for dual citizenship, you submit your application, say, in the morning. It will be processed on the same day. And then you can actually take your oath in the morning. So matatapos ka within half-day period in your application for dual citizenship.
That's good to know, Conjen Neil, and thank you for that clarification. Another po na may question sila, yung iba po raw, we have birth certificate that is authenticated by PSA or Philippine Statistics Office. Iba pa rin, is it different for the NSA? Magkaiba po ba yung Philippine Statistical Office sa National Statistic Office? Because they have po the old authenticated birth certificate. They're asking po kung kailangan po pa nila uli ng NSA as opposed to the PSA authenticated birth certificate.
Pareho lang po yung dalawa na yon, yung PSA, Philippine Statistics Authority, and NSO, National Statistics Office. Nagpalit lang ng pangalan yung NSO to PSA. So if they are holding actually an NSO authenticated birth certificate, pwede na po yun, tatanggapin po namin yon. Or if they have the PSA, tatanggapin din po namin yon. So provided it is authenticated either by the PSA or NSO, that is acceptable for your passport application, for your dual citizenship application. So ano po yan? We will honor those documents.
Okay, Conjen, meron lang isang note dito. From Genco of Las Vegas, ang bait ninyo naman po, Conjen. Salamat po. That's a good comment. Thank you, Conjen.
Sana po narinig ng misis ko yan.
Well, she could watch the replay po. Now, Conjen, may question po. Doon sa travel naman po, confused din po ang community kasi may naglabas din po it was on the channel. It was on there's some countries that ang restriction po ay 7 days quarantine. And then, however, there's also some confusion that for USA people, that's not applicable. To my understanding po, so we want to clear it po. What they're saying is, for Fil-Am or whoever traveling from the United States, it's really 10 days quarantine in a designated approved hotel. On the 7th day, the DOH nurse will come and do your swab, your PCR, and then you get the result on the 10th. Hopefully, if it's negative, then you are let go, but you are required to do another 4 days on your own. Now, can you clarify po or clear that? Because some people are saying, no, it's just 7 days now. And to my understanding from my readings, 7 days po for other countries, excluding one of the countries that is excluded, would be United States. Ano po talaga yung factual po natin?
Tama po yan, Mr. Josh. Unfortunately, at the moment, hindi po kasama yung US doon sa tinatawag nilang green lane countries. Okay. So for those that are coming from the United States, 10 days po yung quarantine that is to be spent in the accredited quarantine facility. And as you have correctly pointed out, on the 7th day, there will be a test, the RT-PCR test, and kung negative yon, they could leave the quarantine facility after 10 days and complete the next 4 days of quarantine in their destination, at home or in a hotel, etc. So 14 days po kasi talaga yung quarantine and 10 days mandatory in the accredited facility.
For the US po, yung mga traveler from the US.
Tama po yan.
Okay, sabi rin po ni Alexander Francisco, thank you po, Conjen, for the information. Keep safe po. Dami po nagbibigay ng greetings po sa inyo. Isa-isa na lang po pag ano. Tapos we have people watching from Saudi Arabia. Now, question po, is it the same rule for OFW o iba po sa balikbayan when it comes to quarantine po?
Yes, pareho din po ang requirement in terms of the quarantine. Yun lang po, meron pong listahan kasi ng, they call it green lane countries. So I suggest that they check the website of the Bureau of Immigration and the DOH, BOQ, the Bureau of Quarantine, para makita po nila doon kung ano po yung listahan po ng countries that are included in the 7-day mandatory quarantine as opposed to the 10-day quarantine.
Okay. Now, Conjen, they're asking also, this is an experience from a husband and wife that when they got back to Manila, they were asked to occupy 2 rooms as opposed to 1 room. Is that something na, are we aware of that po? Kasi parang what they're saying is, please verify, we're husband and wife, but we were required to occupy 2 different rooms. So there's 4 of us, 2 young kids. So my husband took the other kid while I took my other underage kid. But we were not allowed to be in one room. So tama po 'yon? Pag mag-asawa po, magkahiwalay pa rin po ang kwarto sa hotel?
I'm sorry, just on that point, I cannot give an answer, but I would advise our kababayan to check the website of the Bureau of Quarantine. Nandun po yung detailed information and instruction on the quarantine procedure and requirements in the Philippines.
Yeah, kasi po nagagalit siya kasi it cost them daw $2,000, $1,000 for my husband, $1,000 for me, since we occupied $100 per day. And it was for 10 days. So I hope it would be said to the Congen that remedy should be addressed because that's too expensive as it is. So
naintindihan po namin yun. And in fact, hindi lang po yan, Mr. Josh. As we very well know, marami po dito sa United States going to the Philippines, they are already vaccinated. So yun po, yung the risk of carrying the virus is less compared to those that are unvaccinated. But still, they are not exempted from the quarantine requirements. So yun po, we understand that dahil yun nga po, our authorities are really just doing their best to make sure that to keep everyone safe and healthy. And unfortunately, we really have to comply with all those requirements in place.
Yeah, yun po yung another question sana na kung fully vaccinated, bakit kailangan pa raw magpa-quarantine? And you just answered it. Thank you, Conjen.
Yeah,
Now,
and-
Conjen,
yeah.
coming from a San Francisco people of person of interest, will Conjen still continue the Conjen Henry's Spark Connect Empowered, yung pong initiative ni Conjen Henry? Is that something that they would assume that you will still be continuing under your jurisdiction?
Well, ang mandate po ng ating konsulado really is to provide timely, efficient, and effective consular services to our constituents. And that is my priority. That is why we are really working hard to accommodate and process as much applications as possible. We have increased the number of our appointments. We have conducted Saturday consular services. And as I mentioned a while ago, we have started conducting consular outreach missions. Yan, because that's our priority. But on top of that, we, of course, are still doing other things. Most importantly, promoting Philippine heritage and culture. And right now po, our priority is to promote Centro Rizal, which is our country's global cultural center, named after our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. We have a Centro Rizal here in San Francisco, and our cultural activities are within the ambit of our Centro Rizal. And we are doing that in coordination with our National Commission on Culture and the Arts. So mas broader po yung ating reach and ambit of the work that we are doing. But the objective is still the same, to promote Philippine heritage, to promote Philippine culture, to reach out to our young people, the second, third, and fourth generation Filipino Americans.
Okay, Conjen, another question is, we were told, o tinatanong po sa atin, it's being asked, they were informed daw ng mga kaibigan nila, as always, a friend of a friend, na pag naging dual citizenship ka or citizen, you will be asked to pay taxes in the Philippines. So ano po yung talagang official po doon? Magbabayad pa rin ba po ng parang income tax po since they're working here in the States if you are dual citizenship? Kasi po, or dual citizen, kasi po that's what people are saying, na huwag ka magpa-dual dahil kung hindi, magbabayad ka ng 2 beses dito sa US at saka sa Pilipinas. Paki-correct po yung tama pong sagot doon. Yung fact po, or is it fake news?
Ang definitely po, as far as the Philippines is concerned, ang binabayaran lamang po sa Pilipinas ay yung income na kinikita sa Pilipinas. So kung meron po kayo doong business, meron kayo doon profession, you're practicing it in the Philippines, yun lang po yung babayaran nyo. Kung ano man yung kinikita nyo abroad, overseas, hindi po yun kailangang bayaran sa Pilipinas.
Yun po. Doon sa nurse na nagtanong, you could protect your income here in the States if it's only income acquired or earned in the Philippines, then you are required to file Philippine tax.
Tama po
diba
yan.
po? Tama po.
Yun lang po.
Kinita lang sa Philippines. Now, if you're practicing whatever profession or you have business, then you file in the Philippines. If the money is earned in the Philippines. Yeah, other than that, wala po, mali po yung kwento sa inyo ng kaibigan nyo. So I'm glad that we're kind of clearing that out. Now, Conjen, how to be you daw po? How to be a public servant? How can we join and be a Conjen someday? I guess this is coming from millennials.
Of course, you have to, number one, finish your university degree. So, ang basic requirement po namin sa department is, of course, you finish a degree, regardless kung ano pong natapos nyo, whether it's in science, in arts. We have wala pong any prescription as far as your background and course is concerned, as long as you finish a university degree. Plus, of course, you have right now it will be beneficial kung meron ka ding work experience, because that's part of the assessment by the department. So, and there is an exam being administered by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Ang tawag po doon, FSO exam, Foreign Service Officers exam. And several, several categories. There's a written portion, there is an interview, merong panel discussion, may group discussion, and those things. So, yeah, and after that, there's also psychological exam portion and the rest. So, after you finish that, and then you could enter the foreign service if you're lucky to pass all those competitive examinations. So,
Conjen, follow up. Is there an age requirement or a score that you need to achieve to be able to be considered for a foreign officer assignment?
Yung score that is being set by the board, we have a board of foreign service exam administration. So usually po yan either 75, 80, so depende yan sa decision ng board. So, and depende on the examiner. And as far as the age requirement, before there was an age requirement, but I'm not so sure if they have, I think they have relaxed that one right now. So, I will advise those who are interested to check po yung website ng DFA, the Department of Foreign Affairs. Nandun po yung yung information regarding the specific requirements for those who are interested to take the FSO exam.
And then follow up, Conjen, they're asking, is this exam given monthly, yearly, quarterly?
Usually that's given yearly. I think for this year, ongoing yung application, but I'm not very sure. Paki-check na lang po yung website ng DFA.
They're asking, do you need to be a Filipino citizen to be able to do that, or dual citizenship or immigrant can apply?
That's a very good question. Number one, you have to be a Filipino citizen because kami po sa government, we are all Filipino citizen, especially if you are a foreign service officer. Dapat complete yung pong inyong loyalty to the Philippine government because you will be representing Philippine government interests. You know, we will be, depending on your assignment, you could be doing work in the United Nations, in other multilateral agencies, and of course, advocating for Philippine interests and speaking for and behalf of the Philippine government. So
dual citizenship holder are technically disqualified unless they give up their citizenship, American citizenship. Am I correct po?
That is correct. That is correct po. Unfortunately, yun po yung mga limitations as far as working in the foreign service. Dapat you are 100% just loyal and holding Filipino citizenship.
What is they're asking, what is the retirement age po as a foreign service ng Philippines? Just like here ba yan po? 62, 65, or 60?
65 po right now.
Just like here.
Apo.
Okay. Now, eto po medyo question po sa inyo. With your extensive experience, this is texted, it was texted po. With your extensive experience with the private service or with the public service, is it profitable for you? Meaning, is it challenging, or is this something you recommend to your kids?
Definitely it's a very challenging but definitely it's a worthwhile experience. Yung work in the government is not for everyone, of course, if you want to get rich, it's not in government, it's public service. But in the foreign service, it's very rewarding in the sense that you experience living and working in different countries. In my experience, yun po, na-assign na ako sa Asia, sa Europe, and now in North America, and it's a good experience, And of course, working as I said, public service, it's very rewarding because you see immediately yung mga taong natutulungan mo. For example, in consular work, you get to see people na natulungan mo in terms of course, yung simple lang, obtaining a passport or their dual citizenship. But we have complex cases. For example, meron tayong mga kababayan that have been abused or they have not been treated well by their employers, yun po, mga tinutulungan natin yun. You are very well aware of the different and many overseas Filipino workers who have lost their jobs, and the Philippine government, through our embassies and consulates, we have provided for repatriation and assistance for them to return back to the Philippines. So marami po. We have nationals who have been implicated, in some offenses. Meron iba, may mga death sentence and the rest. We have made representations with the government to commute their sentence and those things. So nakakatulong po tayo in saving lives and in helping people, those are the things, that are very rewarding in our job in the Foreign Service.
Okay, Conjen, they're asking also, as far as Conjen Neil is concerned, how many more years is he gonna be assigned in San Francisco? Kadating-dating nyo pa lang, tinatanong na agad.
No. Well, I think that's a good question. Kami po sa service, we have a 6-year assignment. But within that 6 years, you could actually be cross-posted to one or two other posts. Depende po yun. So that will depend on the needs of the department and the Foreign Service. So to answer your question, I don't know. I can stay here up to 6 years, or I could stay here shorter and be transferred to another post. In my experience, in my previous assignment, lagi po akong nata-transfer. Within that 6-year period, I moved from one post to another. And it's good because you learn more, you learn a lot, and you experience different things. So dito po sa San Francisco, I don't know. I cannot say what will happen tomorrow. So for us, we just do our best to do the right things to serve the community, and just see what will happen, in the future. Dahil marami po dyan ay hindi naman kami ang may control, but we follow, of course, the decision and instruction by the department on this.
Conjen, they're asking, is you being a consul general in Vancouver, is this a continuation of that 6 years, or this is a new, fresh assignment?
This is a new assignment, yes. After my post in Vancouver, I went back to the Philippines, where
and
I
you
served
work as assistant secretary.
Assistant secretary, that's right, for 2 years, and then now another 6-year assignment.
Okay, now follow-up question, Conjen. Yung mga assignment pong yan, is that assigned to you, or do you request for such, or is it being given to you, or basta, kumbaga ito yung sayo, or is that something that you asked for?
Sa amin po, meron po kaming system, they call it, they ask for our preference. So we submit a list of countries that and posts that we would like to be assigned to, at yun po, from those lists, then the department will check if you qualify, and then they will assess it. And in my case, of course, I express preference for San Francisco. This is my first choice, so I'm very happy that I'm assigned here.
Now, Conjen, another question. Is the Conjen's position co-terminus with the President of the Philippines, or is it something that is not at the pleasure of the appointment? Is it at the pleasure of the current President, or is it continuing to the next regime?
Yung pong Consul General, it is independent. It is not co-terminus with the appointment of the President.
Okay.
So hindi po kami political position. So yung we have some political positions. Those are the ones that are co-terminus with the President. Yung Consul General po, hindi po siya co-terminus. So, but of course, we serve. I
guess the worry
always.
That 2022 is just next year.
Yes, that's right.
The question niya, baka mamaya we established a business relationship or partnership with Conjen Neil, and all of a sudden, after the term of of the President Duterte, he will going back to the Philippines. You guys heard it. Time to make partnership with Conjan Neil and obviously everybody at the San Francisco, because they're not co-terminus with outgoing President President Duterte. Is that safe to say, Conjan Neil?
Yes, opo. Hindi lang po sa San Francisco but in all of the foreign service because yun nga po, career po ang ating mga Consul General in our consulates all across the world. So hindi po co-terminus yung position. But again, having said that, of course, we are always here to serve and represent the interests of the Philippine government. So ayan po, that kung sino man po ang nasa posisyon, we represent the interests, we advocate for the interests of the government. So yun po. But the position is not co-terminus.
Okay, Conjan, I have a question here and it was just texted. If possible, please ask Conjan Neil. He has been in the position for 6 months. What were his challenges when he took office in San Francisco? Is it different? Each embassy, are they different from different countries? For example, in Middle East, it's always abuses, domestic abuses, and human trafficking. What about in San Francisco? Is he able to discuss the challenges that he's facing right now as a Consul General of San Francisco?
That's a very good question, Josh. When I arrived in January, of course, that was the height of the pandemic here in the US. You know, in fact, sabi nga sa akin ng mga kasama ko back in the Manila, why are you going there now? You know, tantaas ng cases. But as I said, you know, the secretary asked me to go, and yes, and of course I'm going. And yes, of course, it was difficult at the time. But as we've seen, we have passed that period. We have seen the successful rollout of the vaccine here in the U.S. and it was, you know, it was very good. So after we got vaccinated and the rest of the personnel and officers of the consulate were vaccinated. So it was easier, you know, to, of course, conduct services to the public. The biggest challenge we have is, of course, coming from the pandemic, especially now na nag-open na yung ating California now is open and together with the other states, yes. And people are, you know, they have been out and about, traveling. So yung demand for consular services has really increased so much, especially because last year, maraming mga closures, lockdown, etc. So we have been addressing those demands. As I said, nag-increase kami na appointment. We have done Saturday services. And now we are conducting consular outreach services. So the demand really is in terms of the consular services. Because aside from the 10 states that we are covering, we also have one of the highest in terms of the total number of Filipino and Filipino-American within our jurisdiction. From the 2018-2019 census, there were over 1.2 million Filipino-Americans within the 10-state jurisdiction that we have. So just imagine yung pong demand for passports, dual citizenship, and other consular documents. So, but we are doing our best to respond to those demands. And in fact, just last week, we have conducted a consular outreach in Seattle, in Washington. 4 na araw po kami doon and we were able to provide over 1,700 services, you know, in 4 days. Kaya, so our kababayans back there in Seattle, in the greater Washington area, they were happy na hindi na sila kailangan pang pumunta sa San Francisco to avail of the consular service. And we are going to do that, you know, to the other areas within our jurisdictions. So, hindi lamang po sa Seattle, Washington, we are going to other areas. Next month, we are going to Salt Lake City in Utah, and then in Alaska, in Anchorage, and in Portland, Oregon. And earlier this month and last June, we have gone to Colorado, and we have also gone to Fairbanks and Juneau in Alaska. So, we try our best to bring our services closer to our people and to respond to their demand, you know, for increased appointments and services for passport, dual citizenship, civil registry, and other services.
Okay, Conjen, in connection with that, I have a viewer from Idaho and Montana. They're asking, how do we schedule or who schedule for their outreach? Because they're from Idaho and Montana, and they're asking, do they request for that, or that's something that you guys decide upon based on availability and schedule? Or is that something that the community needs to email or text someone in the consulate in San Francisco to have an outreach?
Yeah, definitely. If they could email us, kung meron po tayong big community and they would like to organize and invite the consulate to conduct an outreach, yeah, we would be happy to work with those community groups in other areas. And yung pong, yeah, currently wala po sa listahan natin ang Idaho and Montana, but depending on the budget that we will have, we are going to review that after the end of this month.
Yeah.
And if we have sufficient travel funds, definitely we would like to go to the other areas within our jurisdiction. Yan po ang mission ko, to serve all the 10 states jurisdiction of the consulate and provide consular services.
Now, Conjen, yung kanyang outreach, like you said, in Seattle, you spent 4 days. Is that a quarterly basis, or is it once every 6 months, or it's once every year, or depending on the need?
Na-suspend po yung outreach services last year because of the pandemic. So we have only resumed it only eto pong third quarter. We started it actually in June, early in June, and then July, and now next month in August. So so far, once a year pa lang po itong nakaprogram namin, but this will actually depend upon the budget that we will have. If we will have sufficient budget, then we will be able to conduct more consular missions to the areas within our jurisdiction.
Okay, Conjen, follow up. For this outreach that you guys have, do you need an appointment for that, or walk-in is okay?
We again by appointment po 'yan, and yung sa Salt Lake namin, the appointment was open actually last Monday. So but in case you are from Utah or the nearby areas and you were not able to get an appointment, magpadala lang po kayo ng email dun sa aming email address, consular.outreach@pcgsanfrancisco.org, and we will do our best to accommodate you.
Okay. And then people also out of that jurisdiction, like what you mentioned earlier, they're also allowed, but of course priority is given to the people who belongs to that jurisdiction. Am I correct, Conjen?
Ang priority po yung pong nakakuha ng appointment, okay? Because this is open to the
regardless
public.
where they are.
Yes, that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Opo. So, yeah.
Okay, Conjen.
But if they decide to go to San Francisco, yun po, they could we can welcome them without need for any appointment if they are from outside of California.
Okay, how about seniors and people with disability? Are they given priority po, or are they given a special line?
Yes, that's correct. We accommodate and prioritize po yung ating mga senior citizens and persons with disability. Inform lang po nila kami, padala po sila ng email dun sa consular.outreach@pcgsanfrancisco.org, and we will do our best to schedule an appropriate time and appointment for you.
Tapos, Conjen, question po. President Duterte announced that all Filipinos, regardless of where they are considered to have, or they could qualify for Fil-Am. Is that something that we could apply to the consulate?
Unfortunately po, wala pong arrangement right now for PhilHealth application in the consulate. Currently po sa Philippines po yung procedure for PhilHealth applications. So hindi pa po na-roll out yan for the Foreign Service Post.
Yung pong SSS po meron, di ba po?
SSS po meron, and in fact we have here an SSS office in San Francisco. So if they were members of SSS previously, or if they want to reactivate their membership, they could do that through the SSS office here in San Francisco. Again, there is an appointment system. for them, but they can also email our SSS representative if they would like to come over and to process yung mga benefits, claims nila, and other services provided by SSS.
Conjen, what about pag-ibig? Is that something available in the consulate?
Right now po, wala pong pag-ibig dito sa San Francisco, but we can refer them to other offices that are handling pag-ibig.
Okay. But those are readily available for Filipinos po, di ba po?
Yes, opo. Meron po kasi mga offices din ng pag-ibig in other foreign service posts. So unfortunately, wala lang po silang representative dito sa San Francisco.
Sa San Francisco.
Definitely, that is one of the services na pwede pong i-avail ng overseas Filipinos, ang pag-ibig membership.
Conjen, thank you for that information. The other question is, as Filipino-American, how can we help the consulate? Please ask Conjen how we could help. Ano ba raw po ang pwede nilang itulong either as a community or as a private individual? Is that something na you guys are open for? Ano ba po yung what a Fil-Am, either community or people can do to help the consulate, Philippine consulate, in your case, San Francisco and your jurisdiction?
Kami po sa San Francisco, we are open to working with any individual, any organization. Ako po, I have been reaching out to the different community groups in the Bay Area and of course outside San Francisco. And in fact, yung mga consular outreach services namin, we are doing that in partnership with community groups and associations. So yes, definitely po, we are open to partnering and collaborating with different groups to provide consular services to our people. And aside from that, of course, they could help in terms of disseminating information regarding, updates in the Philippines and share yung po mga information available from our website and social media para po ma-inform properly yung ating mga kababayan within their group, within their association, and also their families and relatives.
The question they have, some people are asking, is there a bulletin board that they could read all this information as opposed to going to the website where it's where the information is just voluminous? Ibig sabihin po yata masyadong maraming information, but what if they just want specific issues that they have, like on the travel and all that? Meron ba rin po bulletin board that could easily be accessed or can easily be checked for current and timely and factual information po?
I advise them po to visit our website. Yung website po namin, bago po yan. The information, we try our best to keep it updated. And the information, madali po siya because nakaka-categorize po yan. Meron pong issue dyan on consular services, meron on advisory, meron on overseas voting. Very specific po yun. They just have to navigate it from the website. But if they don't have time to do that, mag-email po sila sa amin and we will try to respond to their queries and provide the information that they would need. But otherwise, if they have time, please visit our website. Kompleto po yung information doon on the different services that we are offering and different advisories on different subjects.
Conjen, can you announce again the website po?
Ano po siya? Opo, it's pcgsanfrancisco.org.
Okay, PCG means Philippine
Consulate General.
Consulate General
San Francisco.
San Francisco .gov.
ORG po, org.
Oh, .org, sorry.
Opo.
Okay, so it's PCG
San Francisco.
sanfrancisco.org.
Yes. Opo.
Yeah, we'll post that also on this program, especially on the repeat. Now, Conjen, they're asking, meron daw ba pong Saturday service again? Or was that ever discontinued, ang Saturday service?
Ngayon po, temporary po siyang naka-hold because we are doing the consular outreach. Yung pong consular outreach namin also falls on a Saturday or a Sunday. So, pagkatapos po nitong aming consular outreach services, then we will resume the Saturday service at the consulate.
Okay, tapos Conjen, they're asking, can we help them facilitate volunteers? Would that be a problem?
No,
Siguro po
definitely we
medyo
will
baka-
welcome that. Opo.
I think what they're saying is to facilitate kahit mga paperwork and filing, we could do that. We could volunteer. No pay.
Yes, we would welcome that, Josh. Email niyo po kami. Provide your details, and definitely we would welcome, any support or assistance. Yeah.
And so is that not limited to Fil-Ams? I mean, what I'm saying is, do they have to be? What if they're American citizen already and they're not dual? Is that something you still welcome because of the sensitivity of the
Kung
information?
kung long term na po yan na talagang hindi lang po volunteer work, meron po mga requirements. Pero kung very specific, for example, for a specific consular outreach service, wala naman po mga ganong requirements kung mga short-term specific activity.
At sabi lang po niya, no volunteer lang, once a week. It's nothing, no payment. I just want to help. Maybe it would help facilitate and expedite things that needs help.
Sige po, ibigay niya po yung pangalan niya sa amin and contact details, then we will discuss kung ano po yung areas that they could
As long as they're in San Francisco, right po? Kasi,
yeah.
I hope you're in San Francisco because if you're in Utah, that would be very, very difficult to maybe just for the outreach you could volunteer. But like what Conjen Neil was saying, you could always email with PCG San Francisco.org. And then just put your name, your address, contact information, and exactly your intention that you like to help. I think that's the best way where to start. Conjen, ang tanong po, why did he choose, ito, medyo personal, why did he go to public service as opposed to private kung wala palang pera doon? Sorry, I'm just reading questions.
Kanya-kanya po talaga yan ng calling, so hindi po lahat talaga are for the public service. So unfortunately po ako, graduate po ako sa University of the Philippines, a government institution. So one way to give back dun po sa education, the good education that I had was to work in government. And I never imagined, that I will be working in this long, in the foreign service. But to me, it's a very fulfilling and rewarding experience.
Okay, tapos Conjen, because he's been assigned to so many places, does it take a toll on his family? Is that going to be a consideration?
Again, definitely that is a consideration. So dahil hindi lang ikaw yon, kasama mo yung pamilya mo. And in fact, the career is not for everyone because number one, especially for your children, it is very difficult, very challenging dahil palipat-lipat sila ng schools, wala silang quote-unquote permanent friends because after 6 years, you go back to the Philippines or you transfer to another country, etc. So again, it is not a very easy thing to do, especially if you have your family. So dapat talaga, there is a very good understanding and support coming, of course, from your spouse and, of course, your children. Dahil kasama mo sila sa iyong trabaho, in your service and in your career. So, and of course, yung success mo in your family will also reflect in your work and in your service. Kaya it's very important, really, na naintindihan nila yung sacrifices involved in terms of the work in the foreign service.
Conjen, they're saying he started so young, right? Straight out of college. Was he married when he joined the service or he married in between? And how was that? Was it a mutual agreement? Masyadong personal na to. Mga viewers, masyado na kayo.
Apa. So nasa service na po ako nun when I got married. Yeah, so I also married young, by the way. So
okay. And you have 4 kids. Okay.
Now,
Conjen, question po. One of our viewers applied before and got in, but he was afraid of but meron diya pa pong paki-clarify po meron po hardship na assignment. Is that true? It's a requirement that you have one hardship?
That is correct, yes. Yung hardship naman, that's very relative. So currently, yung tinatawag nating hardship post, yung mga posts natin, for example, in conflict areas, like for example, in Iraq, Syria, so Libya, so yun yung mga ganon. And of course, African countries, yeah, so kasama po yan because we have more than 80 foreign service posts around the world and different circumstances globally, and yep, that's part definitely of the work that you have to do in the service.
And that's a requirement, Conjen. You have to have one hardship assignment.
In general, yes, that happens, So in my case, for example, when I was assigned in China, that was my first assignment. Beijing at that time was classified as a hardship post.
Is that the time of the Tiananmen Square?
Lampas na po yun. That I was there in 2001. Okay. So at the time, of course, now China is completely different.
Yes.
When I was assigned there, mas marami po ang bisikleta kaysa kotse. Ngayon, mas marami na ang kotse kaysa bisikleta if you go to China. So when I was there, limited po yung available housing, limited po yung mga available medical facilities, but now it's completely different. It's a very modern country. So hindi na po siya hardship post right now. But so when I was assigned there,
it's not classified as a hardship post now.
That's correct. It's not.
Now, Conjen, yung mga ganyang assignment, it's like you mentioned earlier, it's always for 6 years. So, but in between, you could be recalled, right? And then sent to another country. Because I know some Conjens, they were like 3 years, kunyari, 3 years New York, and then 3 years, say, San Francisco or Hawaii. So it depends really. And who makes that decision? Is that something from the Secretary of Foreign Affairs?
Yes, well, definitely it has to have the approval of the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. So, pero ano yan, there could be many issues, So wala namang walang isang dahilan lang, for the transfer or movement of personnel. So ano yan, that depends on the situation, on the person, and the circumstances. So you should just be ready. Because kami po, in a sense, we are like military, You could be told to go to this place and serve, And we follow the orders.
Okay, now Conjen, may question. To be a Conjen General, what are the positions you have to have? Meaning, siguro po, Consul muna, tapos is it Deputy Consul or Vice Consul, then Deputy, then Consul General, right? Or can you move from Consul to Conjen right away? Yun po ang question.
Meron pong, yes.
Kasi pag sabi, from Mayor to President of the Philippines. Oh.
Meron po kaming in the career, meron pong mga different levels before you can get promoted from one rank to another. And before you could be assigned as a Consul General or Minister, meron po kaming tinatawag na Career Minister exam. So again, that will be like, hindi naman midway, but over the midway of your career. You have to take that exam if you want to still advance, for higher position. So kailangan kang pumasa doon. Again, that's another competitive examination. So ano po yan? That's really part of the service. Meron kaming constant learning and constant examinations and tests to make sure that you are up to date, in terms of the different issues and concerns in the service.
Tapos, Conjen, yung somebody's asking, watching from YouTube, asking us, ano po ba yung exam for the, is it like a civil service exam or it's just general information? Is it more math and English, or is it more on comprehension? We'll ask kasi I don't know if you remember the time that when you took it back when then. Is it the same or has it evolved?
It has evolved, but the components are the same. And the first part is, they call it the pre-qualifying exam. Ito po yung parang civil service exam pero mas mahirap sa civil service. Of course, the general information, English, and math. So that's the pre-qualifying. So after the pre-qualifying, pag pumasa ka dun sa pre-qual, then you will go to the specific issues na. No? Ito na yung questions on international relations, on history, on foreign policy, on diplomacy and consular matters, etc. So yan na po yung written exam na very competitive after passing the pre-qualifying exam. And then meron pong interview component, personal interview, group interview, merong speeches, etc. And then after that, merong psychological examination. So lahat po yun dapat mapasa mo, and once you successfully finish and pass all those exams, then you could be accepted as a foreign service officer.
And then normally po, you first work sa DFA, Department of Foreign Affairs, right?
That's
you don't
right.
get an assignment right away, right?
Yes, opo. Normally, you have to serve at least 3 years in the home office.
So
in my case, I have to serve 5 years before my first assignment.
Okay. Now, Conjen, they're asking, I graduated summa cum laude in mathematics. Just like I was told in civil service in the Philippines, once you have a Latin honor, you're already qualified for civil service. Would that hold true with the foreign service exam?
Unfortunately, hindi po. You are still required to take the pre-qualifying and the other examinations that I mentioned. So
regardless of your Latin honors,
that is
kasi
right.
daw po sa civil service in the Philippines, he was offered already a position in the civil service, and parang I guess pag Latin honors ka, wala nang exam.
That's correct.
Na.
That's correct. Yes. Sa DFA, we also, of course, honor that, and that is accepted if you are going to enter yung ibang positions within the department. Dahil hindi lang naman po lahat foreign service officer. We also have staff officer and staff employees. So yun po, qualified po yun.
So wala ng civil service exams
na hindi na kailangan ng civil service exam. But if you want to take the officer's exam, yun po, kailangan po yung pre-qualifying and the other examinations that I mentioned.
Dami. Ito pa, dami pumapasok na questions. Conjen, they're asking, please ask the Conjen, after Conjen General of San Francisco, what's next for him? Is it ambassadorship?
Hindi ko pa po iniisip yan. Depende po yan.
Is that the next step, Conjen?
Yes, well, it really depends, you know. So you could serve as Consul General, as Ambassador. Yung iba nag-Ambassador, then they go back as Consul General. So it depends on the person and of course the available positions and vacancies, and yeah.
So hindi po yung after so many Conjen General assignment, automatic magiging ambassador ka na? It's not the same.
Not automatic.
It's a step. Yeah. So
again,
it's really a personal choice.
Yes, a choice, and also it depends on the appointing authority. Kung i-appoint ka, of course, ng president. Yung appointment kasi namin, if it's an ambassador position, it has to be endorsed by Malacanang, and it has to be confirmed by the Commission on Appointments.
Okay, now Conjen, merong parang nosy na viewer. Are the people in the consulate paid in American dollars or are they paid in Philippine peso equivalent?
No. That's a good question, especially if you're interested in serving in the foreign service. Yung pong aming sweldo, we have a salary in peso. Tuloy-tuloy po yan. But if you are assigned abroad, you get an allowance for your overseas assignment, yung living quarters and overseas allowance to enable you to rent a house, you know, have a proper living condition, etc. Yun. So nagpo-provide po ang government for those allowances to cover, you know, the expenses of living and working overseas.
So it depends po on the prevailing rate of that particular country.
Yes, that's right. Meron tayong mga indexes. Depende kung saan ka naka-assign. So kung sa city ka na mas magastos, mas mataas yung index doon. Pero kung sa city naman or area na hindi naman ganun kataas yung expenses, mas mababa naman yung index. So ano yan, there is a system within the DFA on that. And more or less, nami-mirror yung system from the United Nations.
And that holds true po for all the employees or staff of the Philippine Embassy?
Yes, except for the local hires. We also have local hires. Yung local hires namin, those their employment terms and conditions are, of course, in compliance with local requirements and regulations. So kung ano po yung requirements, for example, here in San Francisco, in California, we have to comply with that, as far as our local hires are concerned. But the majority of our personnel, they are from Manila on foreign assignment.
And there are also 6 years assignment?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so lahat 6 years. Now, Conjen, in relation to that, on the local hire, do you need to have a dual citizenship or an a former Filipino now Filipinos that are now Americans can apply for a local hire?
Yung sa local hire, medyo mas flexible yung requirement dyan, so because hindi naman talaga sila performing the work of the career personnel. So mas flexible yon. But then again, of course, that depends on the position. For example, ang common position for the local hires yung driver. Yun. So dapat alam mo yung local condition. For example, when I was in China, yung mga local hires namin are Chinese, So of course, obviously, hindi nga yun dual citizen. They are really Chinese nationals, So and that's necessary because of the demand of the work, So yeah.
And Conjen, in relation to that, where do we find positions that for local hire? Is it posted on the website of the Philippine Consulate?
Yes, pag may vacancy, but currently for San Francisco, wala pong vacancy. Puno po yung ating positions for local hires. But definitely, we advertise that whenever we are hiring. Not just for yung local hires, but from time to time, we have, project term personnel. Nag-hire po kami doon ng mga short-term work. We advertise that in our website.
And then, Conjen, ito naman, to invite Conjen for some affairs or activities in the community, what's the protocol now? Should we contact and send email directly to the consulate, or is there any specific number or person we need to address it to?
Email po. If they want to invite myself or the other officers of the consulate, magpadala po sila ng email doon po sa pcgsanfrancisco.org.
Okay, so you guys hear that? Is he open for any invitation, or will it be difficult to get him as a keynote speaker? I guess it depends, right?
Yeah, pag available po, I'm very happy to participate. Kung hindi ako makapag-participate in person, I could send a message. So yep, I'm very open po to.
So Conjen, based on that, may tinatanggihan ba raw po kayong event na hindi nyo gustong puntahan?
So far, wala pa naman akong tinanggihan. So far, So,
I guess it depends po yung availability at the same time if you're not out on outreach.
That's correct. Opo. Basta nandito ako, I try to attend those events and activities.
And then, ang last pahabol niya question, I guess this is our community leader. If we want to use the facility of San Francisco office, or I guess the conference room or whatever, who do we contact, or is that open to the public, or is that exclusively for Philippine consulate activities only?
Yun pong the building of the consulate, and that's called Philippine Center. Meron pong area doon that may be used by the public, yung ground floor, yung Kalayaan Hall.
Yes. Yeah.
But that area that is being managed by the Philippine Center Management Board, hindi po yung consulate yun. So they just have to contact the management board, PCMB, at sila po yung nakakaalam ng schedule and yung rate. Meron pong fee yun because you have to maintain the place. sila po ang magbibigay ng advice on the availability and the cost, for renting that space.
Conjen, ang bilis ng oras natin. It's already 1 hour and 20 minutes. Hindi natin napansin.
Ganun ba? Yeah, I didn't notice.
Last message po, Conjen, kasi ang bilis, and I know I promise you 1 hour and 30 minutes. I know it's 10:20 already. So any message po now that you are on your 6th month with your assignment? Sabi ng tao, is he still happy with San Francisco? He could always go to another embassy.
Again, thank you to you, Josh, for this opportunity. And as you noted, ang bilis ng oras. Ako myself, I didn't notice it. I think because the questions coming from the listeners and viewers are very, interesting, and kaya ang bilis ng oras. But for my last message, what I could simply say is that I've been very happy with my time here since San Francisco, and I look forward to engaging, of course, the community and providing, an efficient and effective service that they need. And I just want to note that this year is a special year because we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the United States. And we have a very strong relations. We have a very vibrant relations. And just this week, bumisita po yung U.S. Defense Secretary to the Philippines. And once again, nire-affirm yung ating strong alliance and partnership. And that strong relations between the Philippines and the U.S. is underpinned by our strong people-to-people relations. And because we have a huge diaspora, Filipino migrant community here in the U.S., especially here in the Bay Area. So kayo po yung ating ambassador dito sa Estados Unidos. Kayo po yung ating representative. So I count on you, towards, of course, promoting and enhancing the friendship and relations between the Philippines and the U.S. And we at the Consulate are always ready to work with you, to partner with you, to service, our constituents and our kababayans within our jurisdiction. So again, thank you to you, Josh, and thank you to all your viewers and listeners. I hope na kahit pa paano nakatulong tayo in providing any information, and just in case may additional question pa sila, don't hesitate to contact us, especially by email, and we will do our best to reply to you as soon as we can. Salamat po.
Okay, and then Conjen, again, thank you also for guesting. I know I took so much of your time, but people are just so happy that they were able to get the clear and concise and factual information from you. At the same time, welcome you also to San Francisco, and of course to your other 9 jurisdiction state-wise. And then thank you for clarifying all this information for us. Kasi nga, like what I said originally, ang dami talagang lumilipad na mga different information na yung mga taxes and all that na may ganito. That's why it's always timely, and it's nice that you allowed us to. I think you're our first Congen General guest for this season. So, and I hope this will not be the last of the guesting. And then secondly, any information you have to disseminate, PHLV radio is open for any information that you want us to definitely help in disseminating information, especially that is that would help the Philippine community and of course the Philippine as a country and the relationship. So open din po kami for any help that we could extend as a radio. This is a 24/7 radio station po, and the coverage, like what I mentioned to you, it's global. So we're being heard not only by North America but across the globe. At the same time po, any shows that we have, they could review it, they could go back and listen to it and replay, and it's already part of our archive. So they just have to go to either the website or to our Facebook page, PHLV, or the YouTube, and they could always go back and review things that we said and we discussed. So at least now, when people would ask me about questions about the consulate, at least on the things that I already heard today and been asked today, I could always say, refer to that interview of Conjen Neil.
Sige po. Thank you again. Thank you so much to you, Josh, and to your colleagues and to your team. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, and then maraming salamat again, Conjen Neil, and like to all the viewers and people listening also online as well as on the stream. Like what I said, every time when we close when I close my show. Oh, incidentally, tomorrow we have another show. It's Dear Kuya Josh and Ate Jen. Doon sa mga nagsusulat about advices, please continue sending them. We have received so many letters of encouragement and also of letters of concern that they want advices. So we'll do that tomorrow in the Philippines. It's 1 p.m. Here in America, it's going to be in the Pacific side. It's going to be 10 p.m. Local time. And then, like what I said before we close, again, maraming salamat, Conjen, and of course to Consul Vanessa for arranging everything as well and for being my liaison on your side. And I definitely will see you soon. Those viewers and viewers and listeners, like what I said in every close of this show, be kind. It is difficult to be kind, but it is important and necessary that we are kind. You can never go wrong with kindness. With that said, maraming salamat, magandang gabi, magandang araw sa inyo lahat. And to everybody, happy weekend. Be safe and stay safe and healthy. God bless. Bye, Conjen. Thank you. God bless.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.